Hello everyone, this is Remlays from 40k Theories, and welcome to this newest episode of Adeptus Podcastus. Joining me as always is Michael from Tactica Imperialis.
Hello everyone.
And our guest this week, joining us once again, and hopefully with a bit of a better connection on both our ends, is Kirioth.
Hello everyone, how are you doing?
Yeah, not so bad, thank you. Just realised that I've moved into a backwater town, which is a bit different from moving into a big city, so I've got to walk a lot more than I used to, but I'm not complaining much.
You're not living in Norwich, are you?
No, I live in the north.
I was going to say, otherwise you can, go and visit Thunder and White again, but never mind.
It feels a little bit harsh to just refer to the North blanket as backwater town, but I'm sure people won't get offended by that.
I mean, I'm Mancunian born, Yorkshire raised, so I'm used to both city and town living. But this town is particularly it's 5 miles of walk round the houses just to get to the nearest train station in the next 2 towns over. So
no, I see what you mean. Yeah, that is proper. That's
yeah.
But
fair enough.
Can't complain over much. And if I wanted to, I'd just take it out on my opponents by rolling giant piles of dice and getting blast markers back, because apocalypse is a thing! Sorry, I took your news segue.
That's right. This is the main bit of news this week. It's apocalypse. Big games, big battles, big robots. But, yeah. And movement trays. Yay!
And D12s.
Yes.
The return of movement trays was I'd say almost a pleasant surprise.
Isn't this technically the debut of movement trays for 40k?
Yeah. It is technically. It's just the number of people that I saw who are like, oh my god, movement trays are back, and it's not for anything related to fantasy, which is what we used to use those for.
Yeah,
fantasy now I feel
had them,
old.
War of the Ring had them. I think, did Epic have them, or did...
Epic didn't have movement trays from what I recall, but everything was lined up on little, long bases, so it was...
okay.
Unless you're a real masochist and have everything on a tiny individual base of their own, without the long base. Actually, that does remind me from one thing that got shown in White Dwarf back in 1997, where the White Dwarf team tried to make travel 40k using Epic miniatures, and they were testing out by driving around the back of a car around Nottingham. They attach bits of Velcro to the bottom of Epic miniatures so you can have...
What? I do not remember this, but it sounds amazing.
I mean, I was barely born, so I'm entitled to not remember this, but...
I remember that, I think it was Adrian Wood, made a conversion of Abaddon into spoiler in that scale or something.
Oh my god. Why would you eat... Oh, wow. That's... Yeah.
To be honest, they could probably try and do it now, because they've actually got magnetizing instead of using bloody Velcro like they had to do in the 90s. They could actually do it with magnets now, and it might actually work.
Yes.
I don't know that playing anything in the back of a moving car is ever going to really work, if I'm totally honest. But I'd still like to see them try a second time. It would totally be worth it, especially given the difference in scale between what Apocalypse is now and, Epic. Trying to keep a Warhound Titan actually, stable and upright in the back of a moving car.
I mean,
that's a challenge for the rich and no one else, really, let's be honest.
Travel games, you can take them on planes as well. So you've got a long 9-hour plane flight. Best thing to do, have a 5,000 point game of Epic.
Or on the train or something, sitting on a little table, that could work.
Oh, we're getting old. So yes, Apocalypse.
I have to admit, weirdly excited for Apocalypse. I don't have as much time as I'd like to just play standard 40k, but the idea of actually getting the vast majority of the stuff I have on the same side onto the table, it kind of gives me that, I would probably do this once a year, but it would be a fun once a year experience when I actually got the chance for this to work properly and to not just have the most, the longest game of 40k known to man.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm in a position sort of similar where I've got 5,000 of Orcs, 5,000 of Tau, and I want both the big army boxes for those armies. We'll get to those. But it's one of those games that you wouldn't play it very often, but you never forget playing it. I feel like it's almost on every 40k player's bucket list to play Apocalypse or equivalent, because there's just nothing like playing games on that scale.
Yeah, it's it's one of those things where you need to set aside a significant chunk of time to do it, but when you do, there's something extra special about it because of that. Actually having that sheer scale is something that you just don't get to experience very often. And even though, especially, like, I remember years and years ago, every now and again, you know, me and some friends and some guys at the local gaming store would put together a, like, massive game. And for the most part, it wasn't actually, like, if you get down to the minute by minute of it, there's a lot of waiting around. There's a lot of waiting. There's a lot of not doing very much. But you tend to forget the in-between points where not much is happening, and you tend to remember, you know, the insane charges that someone pulled off when they really shouldn't have done, or, you know, lucky shots that managed to wreck something that was a genuine threat. Like, those kind of stand out way more than any of the like twiddling thumbs moments.
Yeah. And I do think they've taken good steps with the new Apocalypse to try and streamline the game as much as possible, or if not streamline, at least reduce each player's downtime, because they've released the turn sequence and other things in articles throughout the week. And one of the main things is the turn sequence. So you have, I think, an initiatives phase where you roll off who goes first, then everybody moves, then everybody fights, then you resolve your damage. So they're trying to minimize that twiddly thummy downtime. The game might not play any faster, but you'll spend more time rolling dice than you would do in a previous Apocalypse game. And they are saying that they want Apocalypse to be maybe not an evenings game, but down to a not take up an entire week's holiday worth of game, which is a good move.
Yeah.
Not that I complain about playing one game of 40k for an entire week and rolling like 50,000 dice, but it's not always practical.
Indeed.
Actually having it be approachable is a pretty big thing, to be totally honest. It's one of those things where, for the most part, like, a lot of the people that I know who are involved in the hobby, and a lot of the time I spend with other people in the hobby, it's all like, the idea of getting together for like a solid week of wargaming is great. And then real life takes over and the fantasy vanishes, and it's like, yes, but there's also jobs and children and responsibilities and being just generally a functional adult/student for the most part for the people that I tend to play with. And it's like, well, I would love to take an entire weekend to do this, but the chances of that ever happening before retirement age are 0. So what do we do? If there's something actually built around the idea that you could get your entire collection out and have not just a realistically timed game, but one that's also satisfying, I'm instantly sold anyway. But looking at what they've done, it actually looks like it's worryingly approachable in a way. It's like, I could see this happening way more often than I first anticipated. One
of the best moves I think they've made for Apocalypse is they've actually decided to roll in 40k's detachment system. So what you do now, instead of picking unit by unit or formation by formation as you would have done back in the oldie dark days of 5th edition Apocalypse, is you now buy detachments, a block at a time. I don't quite remember if all the detachment lives on one set of movement trays or whatever. I don't remember. But you buy them in detachments. And that means that even players who have a moderate collection, who maybe play a game of 40k at 2k points with one battalion, one vanguard and one outrider detachment, which I'm sure somebody does, they can then just add in one super heavy if they wanted to, and suddenly they can play Apocalypse super easily, and it's way easier to get into them rather than having to stare down the barrel of, right, I need to build an entire army out of this.
It's like, hey, I've got 4,000 points worth of stuff here. Where do I start with this new system, with this other game? What do I even do? Like, yeah, that's one of the things I'm most impressed with, to be honest. It's the fact that, I mean, also the fact that I can take my stupid dreadnought army, which is all like, it's just ready to go. I have that list, 2,000 points worth of just dreadnoughts and 2 tech marines. It's ready to go at any point, and it just means that I don't have to change it. I don't have to mess about. It's just there. It's like, okay, here's the army that you were using before, but now you can use a bunch of other stuff as well, and you don't need to put any extra effort in. It's perfect.
Yeah, I'm the same. I'm like, right, I'm hoping the 8 will come in. I don't know if the 8 will make it into Apocalypse. I hope they do, but they might not because they're a chapter approved thing. But I'm thinking, right, here's the 8, then here's a pile of battle suits, then here's a pile of infantry, Then I'll buy the new box, which will be a Riptide, 6 Crisis Suits and a Commander. There's another nice, steady detachment. And then suddenly I've got my old battalion battlesuit, a Montcar Strike, supported by infantry. And I've had this mental image of my Tau for years. Like, even when I was starting my Tau army, I had this idea of a really small group of units pinned down under fire, and then one person hits the homing beacon, and the battlesuits just rain down. And I really feel like Apocalypse allows you to visualize that, and the detachment system will benefit that. I hope it does. Also, go look at that Dreadnought army on Twitter. It's really, really cool. I've seen it, and it's very cool.
It's really silly. It's one of those things where I'm strangely proud of in a why am I doing this again sort of way. It started out so simple as I just fancy making an army of Redemptors because why not? Occasionally you need a daft project to tide you over, and it just got so much more excessive and over the top, complete with now Decimator Siege Engine acting as a Leviathan. Turns out the weapons from the Leviathan kit, by the way, fit on that perfect. Don't have to do anything. They just slot onto the arms. I say it's great, but it's something that most people won't do. But if you did want to, nice and easy.
Convenient. Yeah, so let's actually talk a little bit mechanically about Apocalypse. We're not going to probably spend too long on this because, well, we're recording this only a few days after the sort of articles came out, and the podcast isn't coming out for a few more days, so we'll miss a lot of details. But broad strokes, we talked about turn sequence. The other main change is damage. So what they've done is, instead of having strength and toughness, so to streamline the game, every weapon, kind of like Sigmar, has a specific to wound stat. You have your ballistic skill, but now you have a to wound stat, which is rolled on a single d12. You have 2 different stats, strength against personnel, i.e. infantry, and strength against tanks, i.e. vehicles. So you roll a d12 depending on what you're firing at, and that determines whether you score a wound. If you score a wound, you place a small blast marker, which is not actually a blast template, they're not back, sorry, next to the unit. If a unit already has a small blast marker next to it, then you place a large blast marker. Then you repeat and repeat and repeat and repeat and repeat, and then you start taking saves at the end of the turn against those weapons on a d12, I think. I know Abaddon's is on a d12. He's got a 3-up save on a d12 or something, and it can't be modified, as though I saw. So it's very different, and they showed Gilliman's stat line. He's only got 2 wounds, so they're actually going to make things very easy to kill, even in these grand scales. So I'm looking forward to giving this a go, if I can.
I think it's one of the things that is kind of one of the things that I'm liking about like the changes they've made is that it's still recognizable. It's not totally different. It's close enough that I think if you're playing 40k, it looks like you're just going to be able to pick it up and you'll be fine. They've not overcomplicated it, which I have to admit, the first time that they were talking about Apocalypse coming back, there was a little part of me that was like, on the one hand, this could be really good. On the other hand, it could get real fiddly, and it could get like a bit, it could be a bit, it could just get a bit too much quite quickly. But yeah, for some reason, I really just like the idea of actually expanding out to using D12s as well. I don't know why. I don't know why that's something that I like the idea of, but yeah.
It'd be nice to use them as something other than wound counters.
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah, and I think the best thing with 40k as a whole, if you look beyond Apocalypse, which I know is what we're talking about now, is the way that you're very subtly introduced to actually being able to play these games. I mentioned already about detachments, but think about Kill Team. Kill Team has evolved from a game where it was just one squad of whatevers fighting against one squad of whatevers. Then they added in the special operatives, they've added in commanders, they've added in elites. Just by playing Kill Team, you can get yourself a small, what do they call them, patrol detachment without even trying. And then, okay, now you migrate up and you play basic 40k and you build your army up a little bit more and you now have a battalion detachment. And then you think, okay, I want one big thing to finish off the project. Bang, super heavy / Lord of War / whatever. All of a sudden, you can now play Apocalypse. It's one of the subtlest and most evil, if it wasn't amazing, tactics I think I've ever seen from G-Dubs, and I don't know whether to love or hate it.
It's one of these things where it's, on the surface of it, it's like, wow, they've made it so easy, and then it also feels a little bit insidious because it's like, oh wow, they've made it really easy to just slowly graduate from, yeah, I do a bit of Kill Team to I have 5,000 points of Tyranids and I don't know what to do. Like, it's the gap is really not that big anymore.
Yeah, That's so relatable. And the fact that you can just start building an army and think, wait, hang on, how many points have I got now? I look at my Tau, I was like, wait, how did I get 4,000 points of Tau? How did I do that?
It's genuinely disturbingly easy at this point, especially given with the start collecting boxes as well. That makes it just infinitely easier to just rack up points value without really noticing. Because I'll just expand out. I've got a few things that I want. I could do with a start collecting box would be a good way to expand the army out, and then you realise that you've bought 2, and then there's everything else alongside it, and it's just got silly, and you have no idea where it happened, but it did. In fact, speaking of which, the actual Apocalypse boxes, the Tyrannid one is the most dangerous box I've ever seen. I don't know why. I've never previously been that fussed about Tyrannids, but they're showing me a box full of big monsters, and I'm genuinely struggling not to just grab it the second it shows up.
Yeah, so these are basically Apocalypse battalions is what they're calling. They're basically just armies in a box. So just go through them. There's an Orc box, which is basically a dread mob. 6 killer cans, 2 death dreads, a big mech, and another basic mech. Imperial Knights, because nobody needs to have 2 armigers and a Castellan in their life. Nobody, I assure you. An Astra Militarum detachment, which is 3 Leman Russes, a heavy weapon team, and a command squad and a Chimera, because, well, someone liked playing parking lot. A Tau box, which is 6 Crisis Suits, a Commander, and a Riptide. Shut up and take my money, because I play Farsight Enclaves. Adeptus Mechanicus, which is 6 Castellan robots, and a few Data Smiths, and a, what do they call them? Tech Priest Dominus. I don't remember the name of the Adeptus Mechanicus commander, I apologise. You've got a Chaos Space Marine one, which is bikers, like the old school bikers, actually get into a modern box set. What? And then a giant pile of dudes, some Havocs, and a Terminator Lord. You've got a Space Marine one, which is 30 Intercessors, a Commander, and a Redemptor. Like, seriously, dude overload. The Tyrannid one in question, which is, I think, 2 Carnifexes, a Trigon / Morlock, a Turvigon / Tyrannifex, and a Hive Tyrant, come Flyrant. You have a Necrons one, which is a Ghost Ark come Doomsday Ark, Tomb Blades, Tomb Wraiths, and a Cryptek. Not Tomb Wraiths. Cryptek.
Canoptek
Wraiths. Yep, I can Necron. And finally, a Craftworlds one, which is all of the Wraiths. So you've got a pile of Wraith Guard, 2 Wraith Lords, and a Spirit Seer. Seriously, if that had a Wraith Knight, everyone would be running and buying it now.
And somewhere all the Drukhari players are crying.
I did think I felt a bit bad. I'm not going to lie. I felt a bit bad for the Dark Eldar. Where's their box? Like, seemed a bit off, but
also demons didn't get one.
That's true. Yeah, I didn't think about that.
Oh, no one likes demons. But also, when you do demons, you have to have a mix, or you go all down one god, so it's probably a nightmare. Same with Drukhari, because they're split into 3 factions in one, and they're designed that way, so it's probably a bit of a pain to work them out. But is there any others that I'm missing? I'm sure there's more than 12 armies in the flipping game.
Yeah, they're missing sisters.
Oh,
Grey Knights.
Harlequins, Grey Knights, actually, and everything that isn't run-of-the-mill Space Marines
Custodians.
got shafted. Custodes and Talons in general.
But you see, Intercessors are every single Space Marine chapter, no matter how boring that actually is in reality, let's be honest.
Yeah, that's true.
It's still one of those things where it's like, technically, yes, but also, no.
No. Yeah. I admit, I saw these boxes, I was like, there's a dread mob. There's an actual dread mob. Because I fantasized. It's like, I basically got a Speed War, and now I want a dread mob, and I also got like a Green Tide. So like, I've got all 3 blocks of orcs if I do that. And it's like, oh, but also there's a pile of battle suits there. And we haven't seen the prices officially. They have been leaked, but we haven't seen them officially. And like, that Tau box is 170 quid if you buy everything separately.
Yeah.
So whatever it costs, like if it costs 120, that's insane. You get a free Riptide. If it's any less, it's absolutely insane. You get basically 2 free Crisis teams.
So far, the leaked prices suggest that they're going to be 100 quid each, which is mad. I really thought it'd be more than that, genuinely, because we've had the price increase on the Start Collecting box, and I thought that would spill over into this kind of thing. If the leak prices are right, I mean, £100 for the Tau box especially is that's crazy.
I mean, £100 for the Knights. Like, how much is a Castellan on its own?
Like
100.
Yeah, essentially 2 free armigers is what you're getting from that. And it's, I mean, all of them are decent value if they are all the same cost. That's the only thing that is maybe making me wonder if the leaks aren't 100% correct, is that some of them are ridiculously good value and some of them are, pretty good value. Like, as always, the guards seem to be coming out at the bottom because that just seems to be how they work when they have when it looks at like discounts compared to buying everything separately, like their Start Collecting is
lowest value, highest power.
Yeah, I mean, if it's true, I'd love it to be true. Well, no, I wouldn't, because then the temptation is to be stupid and buy 2 boxes, not 1. But it's handy if you're gonna do that. So
come home one day with 5 boxes of Knights.
God. But coming in support of Apocalypse, we're also getting a newly boxed up Baneblade, so they'll be able to hike the price on that some more. The Primaris Repulsor Executioner is on its way out alongside Apocalypse, as is the Scorpius landing boat, as well as a Space Marine Conquest Apocalypse book by Josh Reynolds, which should be interesting because it's Word Bearers versus Fists, Scars, and Raven Guard. Hang on. They're if that was Iron Hands, you'd have the trilogy of completely forgotten loyalists, so that should be fun.
Yeah, I was wondering when they were going to do another Conquest novel, considering how long has it been since the last one?
The last one, was it Blood of Iox or War of Secrets?
The last one was Of Honor and Iron.
Oh god, I missed that one.
Yeah, that was the one that focused on the Genesis chapter of all fucking things.
Is that the one that had like a mentor in it?
No, that's Spear of the Emperor.
Right. Okay, yeah, I'm getting mixed up now, my bad.
In fairness, at this point, there are so many. There's just so many books. Just in general, there is an absurd number. Trying to catch up if you've fallen, like I've fallen behind, and the struggle to catch up with all current it's insurmountable. To be totally honest with you, there's just so much.
Yeah.
Welcome to my life.
We were talking about Black Library Live last episode. It's like, the Call novel is huge. The Sicarius novel's filling in a big gap in the lore. You've got the next Dante novel, the next Mephiston novel, both of which will have fascinating insights into the Blood Angels and everything that's going on the far side of the Rift.
A Constantine Valdor novel.
Yeah, a Valdor origin story. And if you play Sigmar and like Sigmar's lore like I do, you're getting an Ideneth story on top of that. It's just like, what do I do? Like, I haven't even read Soul Wars yet. I haven't read Soul Wars, which is like the most important book of AOS 2, and I still haven't read it.
I got a limited edition for that, but I haven't read it yet either. I just bought because it looked pretty.
Yeah, some of us don't have that luxury.
I feel like that describes like 99% of my Games Workshop purchases in general, though. That looks good, I'll take it. Sure, why not? Do you play that army? Oh, wait, no. It just looks great.
So what are you, crazy?
Yeah, I'm very lucky that I play armies that look beautiful, like the Tau, the Orcs, the Daughters of Cain, and the Ideneth Deepkin. I'm so lucky that I play pretty armies.
It makes it, to be honest, I'm leaning towards getting something that isn't boxy for the next army. I mean, the Emperor's Children are coming along, but there's still a fair bit of box going on there. Just something like nice flowing lines or something like that, or just Tyranids for a change, because they're not boxes on treads or floating boxes or boxes with legs, which is the Imperium's entire method of design for everything.
You can always go craft worlds.
Yep.
That requires, like, I feel like I would not be able to paint that properly. I would not be able to do that justice at all.
It could be worse. You could be doing Harlequins. Giving everyone tartan trousers, for example.
Literally never going to buy anything Harlequins, just because the despair when I tried to paint it would be too much. It would just be like, well, this is a waste of time. Why did I buy this?
That is relatable.
Just paint them in vaporwave colours, bright neon pink and turquoise, I think that would be appropriate for a Harlequin army.
See, now you've said that, I feel like you could probably get away with it.
With Harlequins, you could, yeah. I think that's probably the only army you can get, aside from Emperor's Children, you can get away with having the most garish colour schemes for.
Tau.
Do you really want to have, 90s colour scheme, Tau?
Some people do.
That was a very diplomatic answer.
I mean, let's be fair. Some people already think that the Tau are just anime Weeb Gundam box things. Why not lean into that?
Yeah,
I mean,
that's
it's
true.
not as bad as the people who, make Space Marine armies painted like My Little Pony. That's just weird. I'm sorry.
It is the crossover that literally no one asked for, and I'm not sure why that became it. There was a massive there was a massive My Little Pony Space Marine army that went up for auction a few years ago. I seem to remember.
I remember reading about that.
It had actual ponies converted into tanks or something. Yeah. That was weird. That was a weird army. That was just one of those. The commitment to the cause as well, because it was a big army, was admirable, I suppose is probably the way to put it. It was like, wow, you've spent a vast amount of time on this incredibly pink Space Marine force that has actual ponies in it. Well done. Yeah.
Can you imagine what would happen if they focused all their energy, instead of on ponies, if they focused on Ian Watson?
Stop. Now.
So if you have an Ian Watson-themed Space Marine army, please let us know in the comment section below.
I am so lucky I'm not at my uni anymore because there is no desk that I can put my head through. This dining room table is too thick for me to risk it. Anyway, something that you might be interested in if you're speaking of painting is they actually forged the Slayer of Kings this week.
That was, I'm not going to lie, that took me by surprise, slightly.
This is in relation to the ever-chosen AOS painting competition, which is sort of the equivalent to the AOS Slayer, is the new version of the Slayer sword, though it seems to, I don't know if it's entirely AOS or if it's across the board, I can't remember off the top of my head, but they basically decided that they're going to rebrand almost the Slayer sword with Archaon's sword, the Slayer of Kings, and they got it forged. It's not going to be a plastic knockoff, it's a proper sword.
I wonder if it actually be classified as a proper, battle-ready sword, like some of those swords you can get from English heritage sites. Yeah, the ones that if you actually snag it against something, it's not going to shatter. Is what I mean. I don't mean, actually sharpened on a fucking whetstone or anything like that.
I mean, to be honest, that would be pretty hardcore. If you're gonna go to the length of having it actually forged, giving someone a sharp as hell, actual lethal weapon for a painting competition, that seems like more Warhammer than just giving them a blunt version,
We quenched a sword in a big bucket of blood. Now we're no longer allowed near the Red Cross.
Oh, I'm so glad this is on your channel. You Louise.
Oh, come on, it wasn't that fucking, taboo.
It was still Anyway, the only thing it's missing is a bound demon. For now.
I was going to say, give them a couple of years to ramp up. They'll get there. You can't go straight in with the bound demon on the first one. You've got to make your way, step by step.
Yeah, I feel like whoever ends up winning it should just go and play the new Doom game for a while until something ends up coming out the screen and seeing what sticks.
And the winner is... Oh dear God, not him. Dun-dun-dun-dun. You know who it is.
I have to admit, the Ever-Chosen thing, what do you think of the judging thing they're doing for that? Because it seems... I don't know. I like the idea of it.
What's the judging thing again? I must have missed that one.
Well, it's because it's a big global vote. You essentially enter at your local store, and then once you've got past that point, assuming you do, it then goes to a global online vote. That to me is one of those things where I really like the community idea of it, and I like the idea of the various because there are a bunch of different 40k Age of Sigmar communities all over the place. There's different places on Twitter and Facebook and Tumblr and YouTube and all kinds of places. Yeah. The only thing that I have in terms of them opening it up to a massive vote across a bunch of people is it does kind of open up the chance that someone who... I'm trying to think how to put this without, like, as though I'm, like, having it... Yeah, it feels like it could be possible to game it. Like, whoever has the most followers of the people who get through have a much higher chance to win, whether or not their work is actually, you know, better than everybody else's. Like, how do you safeguard that so that it's not a case of, well, looking at it, this person has created an insanely detailed miniature with a bunch of freehand stuff on it, and it's absolutely incredible. This person has not done something of that quality, but they've got a massive following on Facebook, and so they've won. Like, how... I don't know how they're going to play that and how they're going to make it so that it's about the model and not about the person.
They could do it anonymously.
That's an idea, yeah.
That is... I hadn't thought about that. I'd be interested to see if that's how they do it, because it's one of those things where it's like it might sound a bit kind of like, oh, do you really expect someone to go out and just, you know, use fans or stuff?
Yes, we do.
Yeah, it happens. It just does. It's one of those things that is, even if someone is not doing it intentionally, whether it's just like, hey guys, I've entered this. If you like it, you should vote. There's also the thing of, you know, if you know that it's that person's work and you like what they do, you are more likely to vote for that person. Even if you see something that is objectively, or no, not objectively, subjectively better to you, you might still go, well, I like this person. I know this person. I'll vote for them. And yeah, it's just one of those things where it's kind of all this build up and all kind of actually having the sword forged. No demon yet, but so sword forged, and then it could just be that someone is more popular than someone else, and so they win, which isn't really the spirit of the competition itself.
Yeah, I understand that concern, but I think that's why it's important that the Slayer sword still exists and that Golden Demons still exist, because they're judged impartially, as impartially as they can be, and they're judged professionally. So the winner of the Slayer of Kings might be the people's champion who may be more popular in the community. We won't know until we actually get the results. But if you are wanting to showcase your work and have it judged properly, where it's not a popularity contest, you still have Golden Demon and you still have the Slayer Sword if you're at the right event. So
yeah, that's true.
I can see the concern. I think that's a very valid point that someone will try and game it if they can. But I can't see it. Well, I can see it being a problem, but we know that there's a professionals one there as well. So it could be worse, I suppose, is all I can say.
Yeah, I see what you mean. It's almost like it's still a competition for painting, but it's essentially one of three. And depending on what you are essentially going for, you have three different things to enter. And so there's even if it is gamed a little bit, which it may well not be, it might not even be a possibility, but it's not like it's the be all end all. There is still other awards that have the same judging system they used to. Yeah, that's fair.
There's not a lot much else really been going on in the news. It's been a bit
the
quiet.
anniversary miniatures.
Oh, yes, that. So the annual store birthday miniatures have been revealed. There's a Space Marine that's not a Primaris Lieutenant, and there's a Stormcast, because of course there is. So the 40k miniature is a Sergeant, which I think is an old school. Is it a new school or an old school? Oh, it's a new school. I see that helmet. Yeah, so it's still Primaris. But it's a Primaris Sergeant who
has a chainsword, which is like the first time we've ever seen a Primaris model with a chainsword, I think.
Yeah, I think it is. Unless like plenty of people have converted them, but yeah, I think this is the first one they've actually provided with just a good old-fashioned chainsword.
Not that he's holding it, he's buried it in some poor orc's neck and has decided to hold on his helmet and look like a badass.
All he needs is a cigar.
Maybe that's what he's holding in his other hand. People have said it might be some sort of grenade. It might just be a really fat cigar.
Would not be surprised.
Yeah, I don't mind it. I have to admit, I did like the immediate reaction from a lot of people, which was, well, they heard us say we didn't want any more lieutenants, so he's not. He's a sergeant, still a Primaris character, but not the same rank, so it's different. The only thing that I'm not sure about because I like it and both don't like it, is the battle damage. And that's just because that is such a specific thing that some people's armies will already have, and he'll slot into those forces perfect. If the rest of your army doesn't have the battle damage, it looks like you've shoved him out in front, he's taken the brunt, and is celebrating the fact that he didn't die whilst being shot by everyone and the rest of your force was standing there doing nothing. It's like a weird thing. It's like, it's a display model more than a play model, I think. But...
Well, you could always argue that, hey, this guy's just my equivalent of Nasir Ahmed, who, never cleaned up his armor, never repaired the cosmetic damage, kind of thing.
I guess that's the other option. It's just, he doesn't want to. What are you going to look at him? You're going to argue with him?
He's just a guy who pisses off the rest of the chapter by not repairing his armor properly. He's like, nah, it's fine. Just paint.
That's, whilst he's saying that, he needs to be taking a drag on the cigar. Otherwise, it's just not...
Does he speak with the Arnold voice as well? It's just paint.
Is that an Arnold voice?
It's a very terrible one. It's a very terrible one. I can't do it at the moment. My throat's not as it should.
Yeah. I mean, it is a very nice model, but the problem is they put it out alongside an absolutely fabulous one. A Night Quest store called Larissa Shadowstalker. Whoa.
I'll be honest. I'll be getting as many of her as I can get my hands on. I'm not too fussed about getting the Primaris. I just want the Stormcast. And it's one of those things where I even said in the video I made where I talked about it, I was like, I actively complained slightly because I was like, oh, it's another Primaris. They do a Stormcast. They always do a Stormcast. It's always a Stormcast every single time. And it is... But it's hypocritical to be like, oh, not more Primaris, but yay, more Stormcast. And yet, that is exactly the position I'm in, because I saw that model and just went, I need multiples of this. There are so many things I want to do. There are so many things I want to do for this model, and just give it to me now, please.
Yeah, and as well, this is actually a model that, at least until she comes out, can't be used, because she's got unique rules. That weapon, I think it's a Stormstrike Glaive, which is paladin and cavalry weapon, is not a Night Questor weapon. They just have swords. So she's actually going to have unique rules as well, which is something more that the Stormcast actually have going for them. Yes, okay, it's more Stormcast. They've got the biggest roster in the game. They don't need it. Well, one, they're not the most overpowered army in the game. Trust me, I play Sigmar. But also, they're all unique. These Primaris miniatures are just dude with bolt gun or dude with chainsword. These guys have unique rules and abilities and weapons, which you don't get on the Primaris side. It's like, why doesn't the Primaris guy come with, I don't know, maybe some unique power glaive that's unique to, well, glaive's too obvious, but some unique weapon that no other Primaris has to incentivize getting him, as opposed from generic Primaris dude number 572.
How about a chain hammer?
I would love to see a chain hammer. I'm not sure how that would work, but I'd be down for it 100%. I think that's the other thing as well. It's like you look at the Primaris, and yeah, he's not a Primaris lieutenant. He's a sergeant. Would you know by looking at him, really? At a glance? Would you be like, oh, well, no. Clearly he's a sergeant. You wouldn't know that, because it's just another bloody Primaris in just normal armor with hardly any decoration, because none of them really have that much in the way of like stuff to differentiate them from each other. It's like you say, it's another Primaris guy with a chainsword instead of a power sword this time. And that's all the variation you get. And I don't know, it just feels like the Stormcast stuff, they put more imagination into it. That's the only way to describe it.
They've got more wiggle room.
Do you think that,
as simple as that,
it would have been better received if it's like this exclusive Primaris miniature is actually, Primaris Uriel Ventris, for example?
That would be a ballsy move to just slot a named character, a sort of an established character, into an anniversary miniature. If you're going to Primarisize or primarize somebody, whichever people prefer is the word, I think they've got to stick. So they couldn't do, say, Primaris Cantor for 1 year only, because everyone's going to want that for the rest of time, because it's Primaris Cantor, as an example. Same with Ventris. With the Stormcast miniature and with generic Primaris 572, you miss them and it's annoying, but it's not the end of the world, unless Miss Stratostalker turns into Gavriel Shawheart, who was so powerful that he's in the most powerful Stormcast build in the game and had to be nerfed by 20% in the General's Handbook this year. But yeah, I think it's also because, going back to this whole originality and flavour thing, is because they've got more wiggle room in Sigmar. Like 40k has established exactly what the Space Marines do. Exactly. They have these weapons, this armour, and they do this. There's a little bit of flexibility from chapter to chapter, but that's what they do. The Stormcast, I was reading a book last week where a Knight Questor suddenly was a Lord Castellan who got upgraded to a Knight Questor and got to keep his halberd and his warding lantern, despite the fact he's not a Lord Castellan anymore. And same thing, you just get to be unique and have more wiggle room because the lore isn't so established.
And I guess also it's the thing of, you kind of look at, say, like, different captains and chapter masters and go, well, that person has got something special. Like, Primanius Calgar being a good example of a Primaris with unique war gear. But the thing is, he is massively established and he has had half the stuff he's got on him for however long. And so him being turned into a Primaris version of himself is like, that's why he's kept it, because of his station in his office. If you threw out a random, this is chapter master, what's his name, of some other chapter that, no one has ever heard of. He is the store anniversary model and he comes with this amazing Xenotech weapon. The response would be, yeah, no, you can't do that. You can't just throw a random guy we've never heard of at a massive rank with an exceptionally rare piece of war gear and expect us to be okay with it. It wouldn't fly in the same way as just giving a Stormcast Eternal a weapon that they otherwise wouldn't have access to. Because it's, like you say, the rules aren't the same.
What you could do, you could create a character that's based on an iconic piece of artwork. Like, for example, like one of the Games Day miniatures was the Blood Angel that was on the cover of the second edition box set. They
already did that.
I'm using that as an example. So
okay.
You could use something like that, in future. Like, I don't know, like, did the Crimson Fist from Rogue Traders cover, the one holding the Orc Grenade,
that got done. That got done, I think, as the 30th anniversary miniature, I think it was. That model came out. The second edition model's been done. The third edition sister is now Canoness What's-Her-Face. The fourth edition dude is literally man with chainsword on Macragge. The fifth edition box art is Cato Sicarius, and we don't need more Cato Sicarius. And 6th edition is Dark Vengeance. Nobody remembers and cares. 7th edition, there wasn't even one. Nobody cares. And 8th edition, well, it's Dark Imperium. Random Primaris 573.
It kind of feels like they are like driven in a corner in a way where it's like they want to keep doing the Primaris thing, but there's just not that much they can really do with it because of the fact that they are...
Primaris Wolfen.
I would...
Because we know...
I'll buy the hell out of that.
Because we know that's a thing.
Honestly, what I think they should do is flip the alignment of the character. So instead of having a Primaris and a Stormcast, give us 2 Chaos Lords. One like bulky Space Marine, maybe unique Sorcerer in Power Armor, because I don't think there actually is a Sorcerer in Power Armor model off the top of my head. I'm willing to be corrected on that. And
there's
then
the 1,000 Exalted Sorcerers.
Yeah, but there isn't one who isn't Tzeentch. And then for AOS, throw out a Chaos Lord, say, who comes with a 2-handed greatsword, which is not a weapon Chaos Lords can normally take, that I recall. Or at least there isn't a miniature for it. There's a big spear, there's one on a mount, and this, that, the other. But just give them one with a greatsword. That way you got a Chaos model for a year, and make it just not the same thing. They've got the room to do it without breaking the law. Or the law, if you spell it differently. You can do either.
To be honest, at this point, I would much prefer that they do branch out a bit and show a bit more... I was going to say risk-taking. It's not risk-taking, because...
A bit more variety.
Yeah, it's like... People aren't... I'm going to go out on a limb and say that a lot of people aren't buying the Primaris stuff because they love Primaris. It's because it's a rarer miniature. It's something that you can only get for a certain amount of time, and once it's gone, it's gone. And the fact that it has that built-in rarity increases the desirability of it. Like, there are plenty of people that I know who don't even have Space Marine armies, but have a bunch of the special miniatures, like the limited availability ones. They don't play them, they just have them because they want all of them. Like, collecting stuff is like half this hobby for some people. So what, if it's a case of doing things because you want to appeal to the people who actually play them, then yeah, But if you are just appealing to the collector is most likely going to get what you put out regardless, because they're collecting it. They're not necessarily playing with it. And that opens it up to just do way more, have way more variety, do something different.
Yeah, look at the response to the Noise Marine. You can't play with that miniature in 99% of armies, but everybody wanted one because it was a Noise Marine.
Yeah. It's like, how do you do that? How do you do the Noise Marine and all of the glorious 80s nonsense that came with it, the proper reimagining of that unit, and then look at the Primaris dude where he's unusual because he's got battle damage. It's like the two don't add up in my head. It's like you've got this, what should be an incredibly like Marmite miniature where he is playing the classic guitar that's also a bolter, and people went mental for it and everyone bought one. And then you've got a Space Marine with a chainsword, and it's just like, if you're prepared to risk it with one, don't go back to boring and standard with another one. Just keep pushing it out a bit.
You see, I've just
bring back more retro hammer models.
I've just come up with a theory. What if they're not going overboard on the designs because of the limited availability? They're only going to run this product line for a year, and most people are not going to be in the store on the 1 day per year that store has that miniature available, because they're only for store birthdays. So why would you put all that time and effort into a miniature that very few people are going to own, that most people will never have the chance to own if they don't have a local Games Workshop store, because it will never be available online? Why would you put all of your design effort into coming up with something utterly bananas when you will only sell a few of them? It's almost a payout of effort to sales. Even with the Stormcast, it's a cool pose and it's a unique weapon, but it's still nothing that you couldn't do with 10 minutes and some super glue. I don't know. That's just a random theory I just came up with.
I don't. It's one of those things where that actually does sound like almost annoyingly plausible. But on the other hand, I want to give them more credit than that. But then, I suppose if it is limited availability, although surely if you've established that, stuff that's a bit more out there does work, and that regardless of what you do, if it's something that the community has a soft spot for, they will buy it. Why continue to play it safe when you could potentially shift way more in that limited release period by making it something really interesting? It's like, I'm assuming there's some sort of balance thing going on where they're kind of weighing up just how popular it's going to be compared to how much effort it's taking or how much it's costing to design and then produce and then so on. Like there's got to be some sort of balancing act going on there that dictates whether you get essentially a Primaris or a Noise Marine, because one of them is significantly different to the other. And I think the main thing that gets me with this is one of the things that's impressed me most about Age of Sigmar is there is stuff in there that I would not have called as someone who's been, involved in the hobby just in general. If someone had said however many years ago, oh yeah, there's going to be deep sea elves, I would have gone, you're off your face. What are you talking about? They're not going to make a whole army of dudes riding sharks. That's not going to be a thing. And they did. And it's the same with the I always forget the name. I just call them the Sky Dwarves, and I know that's not correct.
Paratron Overlords.
That's the one. It's the same thing with that. Like, that is some proper, like, mad, half steampunk, half fantasy, like, dwarves in essentially flying ships fighting demons is out there. It's a daft concept, but the execution of it is great, and it's worked so well that people enjoy it. And it's like, you compare that kind of risk taking and that kind of, okay, we're going to go out there, we're going to really go for it with what could be seen as a bit of a gamble, let's be honest. And then for the anniversary miniature, it's a Space Marine with a chainsword. It's like the two don't add up in my head at all. Like, there's no crossover there. It's like, play it horribly safe or flying sharks. Like, where, mix it a bit, push the boat out.
Yeah, I can only assume in the case of the anniversary miniature in particular, it's because you can't get it online. The Noise Marine, they can go nuts because they know that will sell because it's on the online store. The Idneth are insane, and, well, honestly, I've worked on them. They're some of the best models I've ever worked on in my life. The Caradron, it's a fantastic concept. You said it yourself. Steampunk flying dwarves against demons. Yes, 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 yes. But even if you take out the permanence of those factions and you look at these short-run miniatures, the short-run miniatures that live on the online store, for example, the made-to-order range, I don't know the sales figures on made-to-order, but I know I snap-bought Malekith on made-to-order because it was a limited window and I was never going to see that miniature again. I snap-bought it because I wanted that miniature. Whereas if it's an anniversary miniature, it never goes online. Unless they do in 10 years' time some anniversary collection where you can buy all the anniversary miniatures for 1 month only online. Unless they do that, you're only going to see that miniature if you're exactly in one place on one particular day. It's not guaranteed to shift. An online miniature is guaranteed to shift, which allows them to take that risk. That's the only excuse I've got. And I know it's flimsy, but it's all I've got.
Yeah. No, I see what you mean, though. So, I would say there's one particular place that they've done the calendar as to where all the stores are and, where you can get the miniature from on what day. There was a mild typo for one of them that a friend of mine found that made me laugh, which was, I'm afraid if your closest store is Winchester, you need to have bought these miniatures 17 years ago, or you're not going to get them. They literally put 2002 instead of 2020, but I saw it and I was like, oh man, that's unfortunate for you.
Oh dear.
Ah, well.
Yeah, it's one of those things, and we will probably moan about this next year, but maybe they'll surprise us. Who knows?
I mean, if they come out with 2 Chaos miniatures for the anniversary ones next year, then you have real influence and can get stuff done. That's the takeaway from that.
That's the terrifying thing of being...
Then it turns out to be a Chaos Primaris and a Chaos Stormcast or something like that.
Oh god. Well, to be fair, Icky Claw has stolen Hamilcar's immortality. Don't rule it out. Anyway, so moving on before we get into more arguments about that. Remlays, you got your hands on something very special, did you not, this week?
Yes, I managed to read through The Hollow Mountain, which is the sequel to Carrion Throne, and actually not out for another month yet.
So, spoiler section commence now. If you don't want to know, there'll be a timestamp, and I'll make sure Remlay sticks within it.
Yes, so firstly, this book is a direct continuation of Carrion Throne, so if you do pick up this book, make sure you've read Carrion Throne first, because it's quite important. So basically, at the end of Carrion Throne, Inquisitor Erasmus Crowell finds out that, oh shit, a Drukhari's been brought in to try and fix the Golden Throne for whatever reason. 3 of the High Lords are involved. We know who 2 of them are. We need to find out who the 3rd one is before we can, accuse them all, blah, blah, blah. So they go and perform this investigation to try and find out who the 3rd culprit is. They initially think it's the High Grand Provost Marshal of the Adeptus Arbites. Turns out he's not. He's innocent. Then they think it's going to be the Speaker of the Chartist Captains. And they actually end up infiltrating the Chartist Palace, which is basically the head of the Terran Merchant Guild, essentially. And while this investigation is taking place, the Cicatrix Maledictum is opening up. So you actually see, the Inquisitor sees on these screens in the Chartist Captain's Palace of a map of the galaxy and this big red split slowly forming across the galaxy. And he's like, what the hell is that? Oh, well, I can't investigate right now. I've got a busy mission to do. Also, for some reason, in the Chartist Captain's Palace, there is a giant Siamese baby mutant thing the size of a small whale.
That sounds...
Living in a giant fish tank.
That sounds very, dark Mechanicus, to be honest.
And its entire job is basically to track the course of all the merchant ships in the Imperium. That's literally its entire job.
God.
And I think it's been sick everywhere because it's described as of everything around it in that chamber is covered in a thin layer of ambergris, which If I recall my biology correctly, that's basically a scientific term for whale vomit.
Nice. So it's a good room to be in then.
Yes. But yeah, they determine who the third person is, and it turns out to be the head of the Adeptus Astra Telepathica. So they end up travelling to the Hollow Mountain, which is where the Astronomicon itself is located. It's not in the Imperial Palace, it's located away from it, connected with giant cables the size and thickness of a Warhound Titan. Sorry, a Warlord Titan.
Oh my god.
Hundreds of these
the
cables.
Imperium, ladies and gentlemen.
Hundreds of these cables filling up giant man-made trenches as deep as the Mariana Trench.
The Imperium, ladies and gentlemen.
And at this time, the Secretrix Maledictum has completely opened up and menaces completely in swarming terror. So everyone's going completely batshit insane, riots, everything. You know, at this point, it's kind of implied that the Custodians are fighting the demons, you know, the Battle of Lionsgate, but we don't know at this point, for sure. Mm-hmm. So they find out why the Astronomicon itself disappeared after the Secretrix opened. It's because half of the Astropathic Choir became possessed by demons.
This is sounding increasingly like a non-recoverable situation, I'm not going to lie.
You'd think that. So the Inquisitor and his, you know, entourage and about a dozen stormtroopers, they end up going into the Hollow Mountain, getting swarmed by these demonically possessed psychers. So, you know, lots of, you know, this stormtrooper's just been crushed into a small cube by a psyker just flexing his hands. Oh shit. They're being fucked, but it's alright because a single tactical squad of Imperial fists saves the day. Now, bear in mind, demons swarming the Imperial Palace, every single custodian, a shit ton of Sisters of Silence, the Grey Knights, they can barely hold it off, but the Astronomicon, which has fallen complete to demonic corruption, now a single Imperial fist squad, that'll sort it right out.
Now. Bear in mind, the Battle of Lionsgate is actual full-blown demons. These are just possessed individuals, so they've still got human weaknesses.
Possessed psychers as well, bear in mind, because I can crush
Astropaths
people.
Are some of the generally not most powerful psychers, as a rule of thumb. They've undergone soul binding and all that. Yes, I get what you're saying, but they're not on quite the same level as full-blown demons, even if they are psychic. I'm making excuses, and I probably shouldn't.
Again, one of these psychers crushed a stormtrooper into a tiny cube with just effects of his hand.
Maybe the concentration was off. It's probably difficult to focus on the whole psychic powers thing whilst also being possessed by a demon. Maybe the demons just hadn't quite got the hang of controlling the psyker side of things. They were more like reverting to type, you know, lots of clawing at people without actually using the ability to squish people into shapes. Maybe. Look, I'm just trying to. I'm doing my best here.
At some point, the Inquisitor leaves his retinue and the rest of the stormtroopers to basically try and chase down the head of the Astra Telepathica, ends up in the Astronomicon chamber itself, and the actual beacon is literally a giant sphere of light, as you would imagine. And he ends up having pretty much a full-blown fight with the head of the Astra Telepathica.
Who is a beast.
And then the Astronomicon itself goes bang, turns black, blows up. The entire building's starting to crumble. Oh boy! But we do find out one thing: the contract with the Drukhari is now non-negotiable. Well, non-reversible now, because whatever the Drukhari wanted, they now have. We don't know what it is yet, but the deal has gone through.
Does it just pretty much stop with, okay, there's no Astronomicon anymore, the Drukhari is left, half the Astropathic Choir are just in ruins, possessed by demons, and then that's it? Like,
pretty much. It's kind of like, we'll see you next book.
Oh my god. There's a lot of work to do in the next book, isn't there? Jesus.
It ends up pretty much on a cliffhanger, yes.
See, I don't know if I would count that as a cliffhanger. I would count that as the next book is, and now everyone's dead. That would be very difficult to recover from. That sounds like even for Warhammer, that's a an untenable position to be in.
It could always be, and now for something completely different. Here's the next episode of Warhammer Adventures.
Now, if the next episode of Warhammer Adventures is dealing with the aftermath of that, that would be an exercise in writing that would be amazing to watch.
An episode...
Quite
The
so.
episode has also been written by Ian Watson. Oh dear God, no, I think the word comes to mind.
So, broad strokes, we now know what happened after the Maledictum popped up.
Oh,
you have the
and
Battle of
I
Lions
forgot to mention
Gate.
as well, all the Psychers in the Hollow Mountain, they kept screaming, "The wound, the wound."
Yeah, that's a sort of a name for the Great Rift, sort of like the wound in reality. I think that's what that's referring to. So,
Well, I thought that was interesting.
yeah, fair point. So, the aftermath of the beginning of the Noctis 8 turn, and now we have a rough idea of how it goes. Terra goes insane, the Astronomicon blows up, as you seem to put it. Half the Astropathic Choir, if not more, dies, either to possession or friendly fire, or just being in the wrong place at the wrong time. And the Battle of Lions Gate then happens around the same time, either quelling rioting or dealing with a full-scale demonic invasion. How long was the Astronomicon out by Terra's measurements? Do we know?
I think it was around 2 weeks.
So in 2 weeks, the Imperium under Guilliman, with no Emperor, and no Malkador, and no Magnus, and probably very few Alpha Plus Psychers knocking about, considering all the black ships probably got lost because, you know, the frickin' Astronomicon went out, managed to get enough Psychers together and engineers who understand the archaic nature of the Astronomicon, which was built 12,000 plus years ago at this point, in order to rebuild it to a sufficient level and get enough individuals there to power it in 2 weeks.
Yep.
You see, when you put it like that...
Well, bear in mind as well, in regards to repairing all the mechanics, you know, hey, guess who's next door? Mars.
Yes, guess who didn't build the Astronomicon? Mars.
Yeah, but at the same time, it also states that most of the technology used in the Astronomicon itself is modern retrofitted technology.
Ah, so they've been sort of triggers brooming it.
Yeah, because parts of it have been breaking down, they're replacing with whatever crude thing they can to basically fix.
Shout out anyone who got that reference, by the way.
I was going to say, by this point, that thing has got to be like at least 90% new parts. There's no way, given how utterly trashed technology is in general, there's no way that it's still like, oh, we're out of this particular bit. They never had a replacement bit in the first place, I'd assume. It would just be find something that does a mostly similar job and slot it in there, leave it, and hope that it's fine. It's probably how I'm guessing most of the repairs go to that thing.
The original parts that are visible are described as being very elegant and delicate looking, and then you show this big massive clump of machinery where the mechanic has just gone, "That'll do." It's like they all came from the Midlands or something, you know?
We've got a part that does something vaguely similar to that. Give me a second. Oh, by the way, the bit that broke, it's the size of a fist. How big is your thing? Like Rhino. That'll do, right? Just ram it in there. I'm sure
Well,
it'll
the animal
be
or the tank,
right.
yes.
Quite so. So is there anything else in the Hollow Mountain, aside from a brief plot synopsis, that is worthy of discussion, aside from, and then the Astronomicon blew up?
3 pages on how the Imperium gets paper.
Something tells me this is an exasperating process.
Okay, I say paper, it's actually parchment and vellum, you know, which is different from paper for those of you who don't know.
Yes,
And
there
it's
are
not made
no
from trees.
uncultured swines.
Literally. Yes.
Oh, for God's sake, did I just make a reference?
Fun enough, we know that pigs still exist in 40k now. And they're fed so much and given so much growth hormone that if they were ever able to stand up, their legs would shatter under their weight.
Nice. Not even the livestock gets away, do they? Not even the livestock get an easy time in 40k.
And apparently the only trace of beef left in the galaxy is from the few DNA strands used in protein bars.
Oh my God.
That's all we have left of cows.
I mean, we have Grox, so...
Yeah. And the pigs aren't for eating, they're purely for making paper. Or parchment, rather. And
Wait,
most of
they're
the parchment is vat-grown, but sometimes they just take a shit ton of pigs and just chuck them all into a blender while they're still alive.
So they don't even use meat from them at all
exaggerating, yeah.
for like eating. It is
Literally,
just
the Inquisitor's he's walking through it, and he can hear the screams of the pigs being chucked into a giant blender.
Jesus.
I don't know why I'm laughing. It's just so absurd.
It really is.
It's so perfectly in spirit of 40k.
I feel like what was Chris Wright on when he wrote this book? Because I feel like at least somebody in the audience wants some.
Probably. But we also found out why the Imperium doesn't keep official records on data slates.
Because it's impossible?
No, because they don't want to show any factional bias.
Because Mechanicus.
Yes. Literally, that's the reason. They don't want to be shown as being favourable to the Mechanicus by storing data on data slates.
So, well, hang on. So, in an effort to not make the Mechanicus think that they like them, effectively, they're still using pigs to write stuff down, is what it boils down to. I think it's more a case
of showing the rest of the Imperium, considering that Mechanicus is still technically its separate entity that works alongside the Imperium as opposed to being completely a part of it.
In name only.
In name only, yes. But even so, they don't want to rock the boat, essentially.
Oh my god, I love the idea of actually having an entire technology called data slates and then not storing data on them.
Yeah,
I love it.
It's like imagine it.
Clues in the name.
Think about that in our world, just of today. Imagine if people didn't use their laptops or computers or clouds to store everything they do, and they still did it on paper.
The Imperium are basically the tech illiterate grandparents of that universe. They could just save it to the desktop, but instead they just print the meme instead of saving it. That's what they do.
That means we're the Tau, the technologically advanced young ones who are trying to get everything done.
Yeah, you actually know how things work, and attempt to clean things. Yeah, it's.
I thought we were more like the orcs. Just smash it together. It works. It'll do.
Yeah, to be honest, I think I'm closer to that. I'm not going to lie.
But now, for all of you thinking that all the stuff about Vellum and Parchment is a bit absurd, bear in mind it's nowhere near as absurd as the fact that load-bearing walls are considered heretical. This is canon, remember?
What? Okay, screw this.
Yeah, in Death of Antagonist, it is confirmed that the reason why Imperial architecture is the way it is because load-bearing walls are heretical.
What? How did... Was there...
This is canon.
Was there a wall that was particularly, particularly susceptible to demonic influence or something? Like what?
I assume one day the Emperor accidentally bumped into a wall and broke and, had a nosebleed or something, and they're like, heresy!
I was going to assume it's probably a load-bearing wall got knocked down in the siege of the Imperial Palace, and load-bearing walls? This can't work if they could be broken by heretical forces. They must be heretical themselves. Or
somewhere Rogel Dawn is crying in the afterlife.
I was going to say, it's not like you need that kind of thing. You can get away without load-bearing walls.
That's what flying construction is for.
Oh my god.
Who wrote Death of Antagonist?
David Annandale, I think.
Oh, I really liked you and Neferata's stuff.
Let me just...
Why is it that people are so good at writing Sigmar and write really random crap for 40k? Guy was the same. Ugh.
I will actually get the actual passage from Death of Antagonist.
Okay, are we done talking about Hollow Mountain just for the sake of...
Yes, we are.
Okay. I was going to say for the sake of sanity. I thought it's what you were going to...
Welcome back from the spoiler section. Welcome back from the spoiler section. Here's why load-bearing walls are heretical. At some point, the tradition of using pilotis and open facades had become linked in the cultural imagination with the act of obeisance to the Emperor. Load-bearing walls had become heretical, but the preservation of any particular structure was unimportant.
I can't. It's too much. I think there's a time where you can actually say and be correct in saying that it's too much. You can be 240k. I think it's possible to be. Like,
I mean,
load-bearing walls being
level,
heretical
so.
is like. Yeah, I think that's over the threshold of just a little too much. I think you can say that without being controversial. God.
And people criticise Dawn of War 3 for having weird canonical lore.
I mean, yeah, no mention of load-bearing walls in that game at all.
I mean, to be fair,
Terminators.
I mean, let's remember that the Death of Antagonist book is also the one that I think introduced the Black Dragons. You know, the Wolverine Marines.
I prefer the Baraka Marines.
Yeah, actually, that's a more accurate one. Yeah, you're right. So it's not like this book wasn't already playing a bit fast and loose with what the lore was capable of doing. Let's keep that in mind, just for the record.
Actually, no, it didn't introduce them. I think it's the first one that actually fleshed them out, though, because I think they did get name dropped in the 3rd edition Index Astartes article for the Salamanders.
Right.
But I think they didn't have any lore aside from that.
Okay. Well, okay, I'll stand corrected then. But all right, that's a revelation for you. Welcome back from the spoiler section. Here is something to break your brain.
Yes.
And I know this because I actually ended up head desking through this table about 4 times. That's how stupid it is.
I counted 5.
Yeah, I think it was more than 4. Pretty sure it was more than 4.
You know what I mean.
But is it any weirder than Ferris Manus canonically eating sand?
That's still one of my favourites. It's still up there. I still love it. It's such a... It's, sometimes
catching a las cannon beam and crushing it in his hand.
Maybe... I think those might be like some of the... They might be the top 2 of essentially things that did not need to be written, but were anyway. Like, they're really far up there, both of them.
Number 1, things that didn't need to be written. Everything by Ian Watson.
Just let him die.
Never. It's only growing in power ever since Alpha did an entire video on it. It's only growing in power now. It cannot be stopped. It can only be written out to its conclusion.
It's developed a life of its own.
Anyway, so now we've got through that spoilerific nonsense fest. Have you had a chance to get on with anything else?
I have not, no.
Fair enough. Just thought I'd check. I would talk about what I've been reading, but I was reading some Sigmar shorts. Though I do want to tell one fun story. So the first story I was reading was The Sea Taketh by David Geimer. And it's an Idneth story about a Caradron who goes into the sea, finds some coral, takes it. It turns out it's a part of a broken Idneth enclave's Carillion, which is where they store their souls. So the Idneth go and hunt him down and kill him. But the reason I bring it up is because the leader of this Idneth force is the Achelian Queen of Morfan, which is the enclave that I play with my Idneth army. It's Morfan. And the Achelian Queen of Morfan is stated as having very pale alabaster-like skin and jet black hair, and obviously very dark armor. Now, 3 days before this, I had converted an Achelian Queen with pale alabaster-like skin and jet black hair and very dark armor. Annoyingly, I didn't get the steed right because her deep mare was like almost like pale, very pale skinned, whereas mine is very dark, so it wasn't the same. It was like, okay, that's just hilarious. I just wanted to mention that. There's also a Gotrek story in there, so if people want to talk about how bullshit Gotrek is these days, I'm happy to do that.
How bullshit is he?
Let's just say that he's basically immortal. If he wasn't already, because an elven assassin who is also his companion, she's a Cainite priestess, but she's also like a master of poisons. She concocts something that would pretty much knock over, probably maybe even knock over Archaon levels of poison, and it gives Gotrek a stomachache.
Jesus, Gotrek really is a fucking failure in his quest then, isn't he?
And on top of that, they go hunting in some sewers to hunt down a missing child, and they end up running across Skaven, as it turns out.
Sorry, when you said that they're in a sewer and they're running across, I thought you were going to say they're running across shit or something.
No, they find themselves fighting some Skaven, and Gotrek has been given by the Fire Slayers both his axe and also the Master Rune of Grimnir, which is why this elf is following him around, because she wants that rune. She's been asked to get it. So basically he can go full-on incarnative fire. So there's a piece of artwork in the Age of Sigmar book and in the Fire Slayers book of Grimnir fighting Volcatrix, and he's basically a giant slayer who is permanently on fire.
Well, hang on a second. Let me just...
That sounds awesome. I'm not going to lie.
Let me just clarify. Are you saying that Gotrek Gurnisson can effectively go Super Saiyan now?
He becomes basically wreathed in fire and goes on a killing spree. Yes.
Super Saiyan Gotrek, oh, for fuck's sake.
But he's like so powerful, like the heat radiating off of him is so intense that even the elves are like, me, I do not want to get anywhere near this guy. And he's like, incinerating the Skaven pretty much just by standing next to them, and he's already on a killing spree. But like I was saying, there's a piece of artwork in the AOS book where Grimnir's fighting Volcatrix, and it's basically, like, you know, like the classic Slayer art, like the classic Slayer miniatures, 2 axes, massive mohawk. Think that, but flying through the air and on fire, and you have Grimnir in this artwork. Gotrek is that, but with a 2-handed axe and on foot. Because that's the master rune of Grimnir. It just basically wreaths him in intolerable fire while he goes on a killing spree.
I mean, all you're really doing here is just selling me the idea. I'm not going to lie.
Also, Gotrek's getting a miniature, so this is going to be in-game very soon. I want to point this out. This is going to be in-game in about a month.
Oh, God. I mean, it sounds a little bit excessive, I'm not going to lie. But,
I mean, if you consider that we've got Stormcast who can dropkick Sigmar 20 feet across a room, I'm not kidding, that also happened. Thank you, David Geimer.
What? I'm sorry. Whoa. Back up a little bit. I was all on board for the flaming dwarf, but actually, someone just full on drop kicks Sigmar.
Well, Sigmar disguised as a dwarf, but yes. So Hamilcar Berry's in a cell because he's had his immortality stolen by potentially Ikit Claw if Black Library lets Geimer have his way. And he needs to be let free by Sigmar to go and hunt not Ikit Claw down. He's called actually Ikrit, but he's basically Ikit Claw. And Sigmar has to get him out without officially letting him out. So he disguises himself as a dwarf and goes into the cells to let Hamilcar out. Hamilcar has no idea what is going on, so he attacks the dwarf and basically kicks him 20 feet across a room. To which Sigmar gets him and was like, blimey, I should have expected that. Then he sort of goes all Sigmar, and Hamilcar's like, I should not have done that. And he's like, falls to his knees and like proper obeisance and stuff. And then they have a bit of a natter, and Sigmar goes to give Hamilcar his new weapons and armor because he's now a Knight Questor, but he gives him the helmet, and Hamilcar's like, nah, and just throws the helmet and is like, I'm glad you didn't insist on the helmet. I'm Hamilcar Berry, so I don't wear helmets. That happened.
I do admit, I love the mental image of a Stormcast drop kicking a dwarf. I don't know what it is about that specific combination, but
I don't know if drop kick is exactly how he did it, but it was certainly attack Sigmar so hard he flew 20 feet across.
I mean, I would hope it is. I mean, given the height of a Stormcast, you could get a solid, like, the feet would be directly in the face. It would be a solid hit.
Yeah. Also, this was, I think, an unarmored Stormcast, just, for the record. Just in case you didn't realise how bullshit the Stormcast Eternals could be when they go full power.
But is it still less bullshit than load-bearing walls being heretical?
No, nothing can be more bullshit than that. Well, they can.
Should that be the meter? When like the bullshit meter is 0 to load-bearing walls are heretical. Like, that's the top end of that scale.
We have a new benchmark. It's not Primarchs eating sand. You can shut up with your stupid memes now. It's not breaking the laws of physics. It's heretical walls. There you go.
So where will
benchmark.
Crushing a Las Cannon beam fall on this meter then? How far would it fall?
The laws of physics being broken is standard 40k logic. As much as it hurts my physics brain, I've come to terms with it because you bring it up every
So it's very low down the meter then? Okay.
No, it's high. It's very high. But it's not the stupidest thing because the laws of physics being bent is a very 40k thing to happen.
Is it like a partially constructed stud wall out of load-bearing heretical wall around that sort of section?
It's a solid 8.
And what about the plot of Inquisitor Draco having lewd thoughts about a Genestealer?
Moving on.
Insert obligatory Gussie joke here.
Should we do some questions?
Might as well.
Okay, let's do that because we need to move on. So, could Blackstone or something similar to the Cadian pylons be theoretically used to repair the hole in the webway to give the Emperor a bit of a break?
I love the phrasing of that. I'll just say that right now. Come on, it's been a while. Give the lad a break. Give him a weekend off.
He's desperate need for the toilet.
I mean, there's a golden throne joke there, but we won't make it. So,
in answer to the question, if it could, do you think they'd not have already tried it? Or do you think Cole wouldn't have at least tried it because he actually knows what Blackstone is now?
Does he actually know about the hole in the webway, though?
Arguably, no. That's a valid point. So
it could be a situation where the people who know about the hole don't know about Blackstone. Those who know about Blackstone don't know about the hole.
Also, it's a hole in the webway, not a warp portal, so would it actually work on the webway?
I mean, it might help keep the warp energy out, I suppose, but wouldn't repair it, I wouldn't think.
Yeah, maybe it would be a mental break as opposed to an actual proper, right, you can chill, we've closed
I mean, it'd be the equivalent of like, just putting a layer of cling film over a hole as opposed to just gluing the missing piece back into place.
Okay. Are you aware of the line of Venom comics that features multiple models directly ripped from Dawn of War town models, as well as the Spider-Man comic with a bolt pistol? I'm aware of the former. I'm not aware of the latter.
Yeah, I've seen pictures of the what is it, Venom in Space or something? I can't remember what it's called, but that has distinctly Tau vehicles in the background of it,
and the Tau set symbol.
The proper devilfish.
I mean, was that ripped, or was that a cheeky nod that was given permission for, or?
It was so ripped that it had to have been given permission, otherwise GW
I don't think they did give permission, considering that particular artist also gave one of his characters a full-blown bolt pistol, but just added a grappling hook to the barrel for some reason.
Which they've now done with the Reapers, so James Workshop's taken that one back.
Reclaiming it.
Yes, we will take our IP back 5 years later. But yes, we are aware of it. I remember we talked about it on a very, very old episode. I think it actually came out. I think we did talk about it on a very old episode of the podcast. I don't remember when, though, I'm afraid.
A few years ago now, I think.
Yeah, definitely at least 18 months. I don't remember exactly when, though. Okay, next question. So, in a previous episode, we talked about the de-nuancing of the Chaos Gods, how they've gone a bit less multi-dimensional. And this is sort of a follow-up to that. Do you perhaps believe that the de-nuancing of the Chaos Gods is an intentional nerf to their power? Because by some fluff, anyone with a shred of honor is doomed to Khorne, anyone who takes joy in anything is doomed to Slaanesh. Now they're just over-excessivizing them. TLDR, are they being less subtle on purpose? So they're sort of nerfing them by de-nuancing them.
Probably, yeah.
To be honest, that sounds pretty plausible. Because otherwise you essentially write yourself into an amazingly not good hole where it doesn't matter who you are. You're all going to face the same fate. And as such, the question of what's the point of carrying on would come up at some point. If there's actually a chance for salvation and there's a future that exists that does not involve you falling to one of the Chaos Gods, no matter what you do, that's a far more approachable, that's way more approachable than just, every single facet of humanity, or indeed just mortality as a whole, is connected, and therefore there is no chance that you're going to get out of this without being consumed or tortured by one of them. If you take that away, then things are actually a bit more balanced, and it's not quite as grimdark, admittedly, but it's still better from a writing perspective. So that seems pretty plausible to me.
Because you've got the whole, I don't know if this is still canon, but every warrior who died in battle ends up in Khorne's domain doing, working the forge, and every coward who ran away from battle is also in Khorne's domain for one reason or another. So you've also got this clash of anyone who does something but also does something else kind of should be in two places at once. And I know the Chaos Gods would actually fight over that soul, that's just the way things work. But it definitely does box you into a corner, because how would Remus Ventanus' ghost be allowed to hang around on Calth for 10,000 years to give Uriel Ventris an Athame dagger to kill Kar if he was stuck in Khorne's domain fighting a forge for 10,000 years? It just wouldn't work.
Yeah, there needs to be an actual separation, otherwise you end up in weird territory where things just can't happen because there is no way that anyone can escape it, which is, yeah, it's grim and it's dark and it's also not really feasible long term.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Okay, this is probably more for Remlays, though it is open to everybody. What is the most interesting concept you've seen in a homebrew that you might wish to see integrated into canon? And no, Remlays, you can't say your own character.
I wasn't going to.
Had to make sure.
I'm not sure, to be honest. My mind's gone completely blank in this, to be honest.
That's fair. I mean, I'm sure people will pick out one facet or another from TTS that is either completely or incompletely implausible as one thing or another. Like, just give the Emperor text to each device, let the snark commence and see what happens. I'm sure someone would love for that to be a thing. But I know you have your own homebrew series on your channel, so I thought I'd just sort of aim at you because I know you've done. Okay. How fast does a Genestealer infestation happen? In one case, it took generations to destabilize a world, and in another case, it took just like 7 years. So, just people are curious, I guess.
As far as I'm aware, it takes a few generations at the very least. It takes, at the very least, around 4 or 5 generations.
Yeah, to get a pureblood Genestealer back from an initial infestation, you go through 4 gens of hybrids. And then you have the pseudo 5th gen, which can either be the metamorphs or pure strain Genestealers. So if you want to get back to Genestealers, then it's 5 generations. However, a Genestealer uprising can happen at any time and can destabilize a world. This is it's a difference between an infestation happening and an uprising happening. There's two big distinctions there.
Don't the metamorphs only occur when a hive fleet's coming within range?
Yeah, actually, you might be right. They're definitely offspring of 3rd or 4th gen hybrids, but they're only in specific circumstances.
Yeah. So just out of interest, if there was if it was only 1 or 2 generations in and a hive fleet shows up, would that still trigger an uprising?
Yes, it wouldn't work. It depends. I think what would happen is anything that could be done to spawn a leader, like a Primus, would go into overdrive. You might get a metamorph generation. You might get a Primus. Or the pureblood Patriarch will just say, right, there is a hive fleet. It's coming. We have what we have. Let's do what we can with what we have.
Yeah.
So the only time you'll see a cult uprising happen early would be if a hive fleet shows up too early, quote unquote, or if the cult is discovered and needs to fight. They're the only times, because normally they'll just infiltrate society until it is convenient for them to rise up, either because they can take the world on their own or because there's a hive fleet and now is the time to do it.
I guess with that, I'm assuming that would also massively affect how actually effective they could be. If they're not in a particularly good position of strength, if they're only 1 or 2 generations in, any uprising is going to be weaker by far than if they've had, a significant amount of time to fully insert themselves into society. So it's almost like an emergency response thing. It's oh, the fleet is here, let's go. Even though you're not ready, you've just got to go for it.
Yeah, it's exactly that, because a 2nd generation uprising, you've still got the acolytes. You don't have the neophytes, so the humanoid ones. You've got the part Genestealer ones. The main difference between a early uprising and a complete one is you don't have the leader figures, the new commanders whose name I don't remember. And then you have the Magus, the Primus, you'll have the Patriarch, but you'll have no Magus, no Primus, and no other leader figures in the first couple of generations because they'll look too Genestealery, with the possible exception of a Primus, but they're only spawned at the time of war. So I think you get a Primus out, so you'd have a military leader, but the difference is that you wouldn't be able to infiltrate society without the neophytes and the Magus. So it would be less effective, yes, and it would be an emergency response, yes. I think you got it about right.
It's one part of the lore that I don't know. I really don't know very much about the Tyranid side of things, and it's something that I always mean to look into more, because it feels like a very unique, especially the Genestealer cult side of things, feels like quite a unique thing in 40k compared to a lot of the other races and factions.
I would agree with that. I haven't had a look at the new Genestealer cult lore, like since the new Codex came out. But I did do videos on the Tyranids, the Hive Fleets, and the cult, so I vaguely know what's going on. I just haven't seen all the up-to-date stuff of the newest bits and bobs, like the Pauper Princes and all that stuff. Okay. So, this is a question relating to the novel Pandorax. There is a creature described as a supreme demon known as the Prisoner from the Emerald Cave. A demon above greater demons that could take an entire army, including Titans, Grey Knights, Imperial Guard, and more, without breaking a sweat, apparently.
Yeah, that happened, yeah.
So the question goes, do you think that we'll see more of these kinds of demons in the future? And even beyond that, what do you think of the idea of such a being? Because, in my opinion, I think that that's a bad idea. A one-demon army, planet-crushing machine is just a fundamentally bad idea, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I know demons are meant to be, completely immutable in regards to size, power, blah, blah, blah. But I personally just don't like the idea of having, say, a great unclean one that's, supposedly more powerful than, Kugath, as an example. Or like a Bloodthirster more powerful than Scarborough. It just seems a bit stupid to me.
Yeah.
And there's whatever the hell that thing from Dawn of War 3 was.
Yeah, there's room for exceptionally powerful demons like Scarbrand, Angrath, Kugath, and Shalaxi Hellbane and Kairos. There's room for those super powerful demons, but there comes a point where you go from being super powerful, like the Exalted Greater Demons, to being one-man armies that can take an entire planet on their own. Because at that point, it's like the Planet Killer in some ways. Like, when you have a ship that can just exterminate us and destroy planets on command, like the Planet Killer, suddenly you think, well, why do you ever lose? Because the anti-demon Grey Knight are being curb stomped by this superpower demon. So how do you beat it? Answer, you don't. And if it's not banished, it's not on a timer on its respawn. It just disappears and comes back whenever it wants. So how do you ever lose?
I think it's also a thing of, like, having like exceptionally powerful demons, but they're still relatable to slightly less but still powerful demons, just does something to show the hierarchy of that particular side. It indicates that even amongst these creatures there are those who are a step above everyone else, which is something that's mirrored in every single faction. There's always someone who is slightly better than everyone else. But once you get to the point of having something that is unarguably better than everything, the idea that anything is a credible threat to anything else kind of goes out the window, because you've got this one thing that is so immensely powerful that nothing else matters. And it's like at that point you lose any of the things that make the fights worth having, that make sacrifice worth making, that like narratively it's just not good, because you just end up with this kind of ridiculous monstrosity that requires vast amounts of resources to get rid of. And at the end of it, what you're left with is not this idea of, oh, there's this legendary figure. Instead, it's, well, what the hell do they do if that shows up again?
It's an I win button.
Yeah, it's like
imagine if they gave that to the Tyranids. Just as an example, like the Tyranids are a fantastic example of exactly what you've just said. Of, are these battles worth it? We're throwing away lives after lives after lives and planet after planet after planet to try and stop the Tyranids, but they keep coming. But it works because you can beat them. They can be stopped from time to time. If the Tyranids had a supermassive I win button beast, then what would be the point? It's the same argument.
And there are things done to like divert hive fleets, and there's all kinds of things that have impact. Whereas if you've just got one massive thing that is just a gigantic, can kill anything machine, all the subtlety is then gone as well. Like there's no space for actual strategy or thought or It's just throw everything at it until it stops. Which, yeah, sometimes, quite often, you kind of have to do that with hive fleets, but there are also other things, and there's also there's scorched earth policies and ways to try and divert them and to starve them, and there's other things that can be done in a pinch other than just let's throw the entire population of this system at it. Whereas, especially with a demonic force that is just a planet eating demon, what are you going to do to distract that? What are you going to do to scorched earth that? You're just going to have to just throw things at it endlessly.
Yeah. And I think this is maybe why some people get arsy about the War of the Beast. Because I don't know why, but some people seem to hate the War of the Beast as a lore concept. And it's maybe because there was seemingly no way to beat the orcs. Because they had the attack moons and they had the prime orcs. And it took an absolutely bonkers bullshit Hail Mary of using the orcs against themselves in order to beat them. Maybe the orcs were just too OP for people to stomach. I don't know why people hate War of the Beast, but some do. And maybe that's why.
Yeah, I think I can see that.
Okay, so next question. Staying with orcs, actually, that's convenient. Isn't it true that the Salamanders once prevented an orc war from regrowing by setting an entire city on fire with Promethium?
Yes, it is.
Do we have a source on that? Was it in a codex somewhere?
It was in a codex from Oracle. I remember actually covering that from the timeline videos.
Yeah, actually, I think I remember editing that. And the second follow-up is do you think that both the Salamanders and Tushan deserve some more lore and models? Yes, I made a Salamanders lore video in the modern era. It was a right pain in the arse.
Yeah, they still probably get more love than some other chapters, let's be honest.
Yep.
I'm still waiting for my full-length Rainbow Warriors novel.
I think you're going to be waiting a long time for that.
I'd just take a model for Cardo and Stronos.
In fairness, we did get a novel that finally had a mentor as one of the main fucking characters after God knows how long.
There is hope.
Never say never. There is hope. The Rainbow Warriors shall rise again.
Maybe.
Chapter Master Fabulous.
Annoyingly, I know that's canonically right, so I just have to move on. So, Remlace, how well do you remember Plague War?
Parts of it I remember pretty well.
Okay, well, apparently at the end of Plague War, a great unclean one calls the, in air quotes, Imperial Saint...
Oh, the little girl, yeah.
Anathema. Or anathema, or however you prefer to pronounce it.
Anathema, yeah.
Yeah. So, what do you believe the implications are to this? Was she possessed by the Emperor since Chaos Gods called the Emperor Anathema?
That was the implication, because the power was so great, it was actually killing her. By the end of the story... her eyes had completely burnt away and her body was just burning from the sheer amount of psychic power that was inside her. And Gilliman kind of recognized that as being his father's power. So the implication is that the little girl was actually possessed by the Emperor.
Okay. Good. Is it Plague War that you had a bit of a problem reading?
Yeah, the novel was kind of shit overall, to be honest. The best bit, though, was at the end where Gilliman was giving that absolute massive chewing out to that priest, Matthew. Absolutely rips the shit into him. It was fucking brilliant. That made up for a lot of the bad shit in the novel.
Are we sort of talking the Conrad Kurz level novel of a really good ending making up for nonsense in the prelude?
Don't take me out of point. That ending doesn't make up for the entire book.
No,
it was a good ending. It was the best thing about the fucking book, but it didn't make up for the rest of the shit in that book.
Yeah, so was it sort of... I haven't had a chance to replay. Was it pretty much Gilliman tears down the ecclesiarchy and one poor priest just has to take it?
Pretty much, in a way, yeah. I can't remember the exact dialogue verbatim because it's been a while since I read it, but yeah, he's just basically sick of the priest shit, essentially.
That sounds worth reading, to be honest. If it's just that section, maybe just read that section then. I've not got right.
I'm trying to remember because even though like Gilliman's one thing I didn't really like about the book is how disjointed it was. Like one chapter will be following Mortari, next chapter will be following some random marine and ultramarine successor chapter, then we'll be following the priest, then we'll be following Kugath, then we'll be following back to the ultramarine successor chapter again, then we'll be back to Kugath, then we'll be finally getting onto Gilliman. It's like, for fuck's sake, can we just have some, I don't know, bit more of a rhythm, like, go like Mortari and Gilliman kind of thing. I don't know. I think that'd be easier for everyone. Because it just feels disjointed otherwise. It feels like someone just wrote a bunch of random short stories and just spliced them together. Oh, who wrote that book as well? Oh, it was Guy Haley.
Something tells me you're going to have a beef with that gentleman before too long. Something tells me.
It's like, Guy, you write your Blood Angels very well. You write your Orcs very well. But everything else...
You write your Guard very well.
But everything else? What the fuck? I'm sorry, but what the fuck?
Yeah, I feel like I have a sort of thing with like Guy where it's like, you write your Elves very well. You write your Stormcast very well. But Primarchs? No, not so much. But
hey. Ferrus Mass eating Sam was the best thing to come out of the Primarch series.
I thought it was the Emperor's Children with the tiny little plate.
That's the second best now.
It's the official ranking.
All right.
It's the official rankings, yes.
Is this the best moments ranking or best memes ranking? They're not the same.
Yes.
But but jumping back to Plague War, like I feel like that chewing out that Gilliman gives, because Gilliman is good at roasting people in long form speeches, because he does it to Lorgar, and by God, that is an absolutely savage roast. And he does it to Angron after Angron chews him out. He does it in a lot less words, but Gilliman is good at savaging people with his words. He's very good at it.
As you'd expect from a politician.
And he's not evasive. Keep that in mind.
No.
Anyway.
Oh, and I forgot at the end of Plague War as well. What does he do at the very end of Plague War? He starts reading the Lectitio Divinitatis. Literally.
As long as he burns it afterwards, it's fine. Just like, oh, that's what this lot did. Oh, great. Awesome. Look what I've got to deal with now.
Wait. I wonder if like he ever had a chance, like when Monarchia burned, to ever find a copy that Lorgar was working on at the time.
Literally, the very last words of the book are Lorgar's. Oh god, my throat's gone really weird. Hang on. Fuck.
But I'll let you recover. But like, I feel like if he found like the pre-Monarchia and pre-Lorgar's Fall version, which is probably quite a nice, concise tome extolling the virtues of the Emperor. Maybe he found one before realizing that Lorgar was batshit crazy, and then he finds this version. Like, wait, this is Lorgar's book? This sounds nothing like Lorgar. I know. I talked to him.
Either that, or I'd like to see either that, like the internal monologue of, man, they've really fucked up what Lorgar said. I'd like to see that, or alternatively, I've read this before. What the hell is this? What the hell is this?
Well, it sounds like he starts reading it. It's just like, yummy, yummy, yummy. I've got love in my tummy, and it's love for the Emperor. What? No, Ferris, it's not sand.
I really hope that I really always wish there was an epilogue, which was just like one page of Lorgar like scrying on Sikaris, and he sees Gilliman reading this, and he's just like, told you so.
The last two words are just, I win. That's it. That's the end of the book.
Finally,
that would have been really good.
Finally, that's one thing I actually did like from the Beast Rises series, is like when the Iron Warriors find out that people in the Imperium are worshipping the Emperor as a god, the Iron Warriors are like, oh, for fuck's sake, the Word Bearers won.
Classic Iron Warrior snark.
Yeah, because they see the Black Templars praying to the Emperor. I was like, what the fuck are you doing?
Okay.
Let's just never forget as well that book also gave us an awesome scene of the Iron Warriors and the Black Templars allying with each other. Remember that.
And you wonder why people might actually dislike the Beast Arises if they don't like that sort of thing.
But the thing
you
is,
start to wonder.
But the thing is, bear in mind, that book is set only 1,500 years after the heresy.
Oh, only 1,500?
Yeah, that's
after the Iron Cage incident happened.
Yeah, that's literally a blink in the eye in a time span of 40k, let's be honest.
It's about 1/8 of the current timeline progression, but okay, fine.
And also, the Black Templar's dreadnought, he knew the Iron Warrior's warsmith because they fought together back during the Great Crusade, so it was all good.
Oh my god! See, I've not read The Beast Arises, and I'm not. You're not selling it me. I'm gonna. It's that sounds like just instant grounds for mutual destruction. Not. Do you remember the good old days where we,
Oh no, they were kicking the shit out of each other, and then the orcs turned up, and it was like, oh fuck.
Okay.
Neither of us are going to get out of this.
So it was more a case of, look, let's deal with this first, and then we'll carry on fighting the war. Yeah.
It was literally a case of we don't like you, you don't like us, but they're going to kill us both unless we kill them together. What do you say?
It's a bit of a Silent King Dante sort of situation.
It was a temporary truce, yeah.
Yeah. Admittedly, it didn't end. I think I read up on that dreadnought. It was like he had to be restrained by his marshal from killing that warsmith just to get them through the fight.
Pretty much.
As I recall. Awesome. Yeah, and if you want more nonsense from the Beast Arises, may I present the Proletariat Crusade?
Oh, that was hilarious.
Or the beheading.
Oh, the beheading was awesome.
The beheading is awesome, but taken out of context, it's one dude from the Assassinorum assassinates the entire Senatorum Imperialis and creates a puppet state where he rules as a tyrant for nearly a century and has to be put down by a space marine and one of his own servants before the Ultramarines bring 50 chapter masters to basically kick the asses of the new Senatorum into shape and then naff off again.
In fairness, the assassin...
Out of context.
In fairness, the Grandmaster didn't do all the assassinations himself. That's what his fucking, his part of the government's for.
Yes, but the idea of the Assassinorum stages a coup on the Senatorum and then rules for 100 years and gets away with it, taken out of context, not accounting for the fact that the High Lords at the time were incompetent and Vangrich had put up with their shit for years. We take that out of context, though, and it is ridiculous. And the Proletariat Crusade, a giant Death Star moon, is hovering in the orbit of terror. Let's throw all the civilians at it and see what happens. Yeah, great idea, that one. Fabulous idea. Never mind that we've just created the Death Watch, who are designed to do that.
The Death Watch hadn't been created at that point. The Death Watch were created after the Proletariat Crusade.
Yes, sorry. Also, let's point out that this was all organised by the Ecclesiarch, who was basically corrupted into the idea of let's all just surrender to our new alien overlords, and he's the Ecclesiarch.
I really like the idea of throwing just a bunch of normal, everyday plebs at the problem, finding that it didn't work, and then going, do you think we ought to have found some sort of elite Space Marine chapter to deal with this instead? Because the normal dudes just aren't cutting it. We tried.
I don't know if you guys managed to hear me because my Discord cut out, but the Death Watch weren't found until after the attack on Terra was destroyed.
Oh,
so there was like a significant gap. It wasn't, well, we tried throwing normal dudes, that didn't work. Let's create the Death Watch. There was a bit of a time gap between the two.
They threw dudes at it, then they blew it up.
It's because at that point, there was no one in Sol apart from like one Navy ship. That was it.
The lack of security is not great.
Well, most of the fleet got, completely wrecked when they went to, destroy another attack moon. Then this attack moon appeared out of nowhere, and Terra's always like, hello! Guess what? We are fucking teleporters, bitch! We can teleport entire moons!
And people start to wonder why you don't like the War of the Beast. And let's remember how the War of the Beast ends.
Oh yeah, Vulcan dies!
And Eleanor is retaken, and instead of blowing the thing up, the mechanics decide to reverse engineer Orc technology, which is, the most batshit impossible thing to work with. They reverse engineer it and teleport an entire planet halfway across the galaxy where it becomes Armageddon.
Yep.
And I'm sorry, but what?
Oh, I love that. I just love the idea of, especially they show up. Okay, how does any of this work? We don't know how our own stuff works, really. What about this?
With the Terran attack moon, what they tried to do initially was try to teleport it away somewhere into a star or whatever. But because, first time, didn't go well, so what happened? Oh shit, we just blew up the moon, and now big chunks of moon are falling on Terra, killing billions. Whoops.
And damaging a lot of the Imperial Palace in the process, and it's still not been repaired.
And by the way, our High Ecclesiarch is now worshipping the orcs. Oh dear, well, better kill him. Bang! Oh, we got a spot on the High Lords. Vanguard, you on the job? Great.
Never mind, you just got fired from it a while ago and lost your seat to that Ecclesiarch. We'll ignore that. Oh, God.
In fairness, Vanguard is the best thing about that series.
Oh, Vanguard is brilliant. And Courland and Thane are not terrible. And seeing the founders of the Inquisition, like Kirill Sinderman and stuff, knocking about just and getting to meet Janus, or at least they get to meet Janus. I think that sort of happens off screen.
No. Janus actually has one line, I think, in the entire book.
Okay, it's almost off screen then. It's slightly on screen. But seeing some of those things, like the last war, that is such a Dornish thing to do. But then they wipe out the entire Imperial Fist chapter and rebuild it. And then, this is after, bear in mind, the Soul Drinkers, who were contributing to the Last War Protocol, have been found out to not be Imperial Fist by our own understanding, yet they just rebuild the Imperial Fist with them. Not that they knew it at the time, but we know, so it seems stupid, but...
So a quarter of the Imperial Fist today are not descended from Rogel Dawn.
Indeed.
You know what, I can't imagine why people would be annoyed by that. The whole loyalty to certain chapters and
Gathering Storm has weird writing.
I mean, yeah, the series had a kind of, had a few dud books, like, every long series does. I mean, it's 12 books long, which is not long by 40k standards, but long by most book standards, let's be honest. But, there's some duds, I'll admit, but there's also some really good stuff in there as well. Overall, I enjoyed it. I mean, it wasn't nowhere near as good as the Horus Heresy or anything like that, but it was certainly enjoyable enough.
I think that
I got the entire series, finished in 2 weeks. So
the Horus Heresy has a distinct advantage over a lot of long series anyway, in that there are some properly standout books in that series that, even looking outside the confines of 40k / Horus Heresy, are just really good books in their own right, regardless of the fact that they're in that universe. There are just some books in that series that are essentially so good that the next 4 can be not that great, and you don't mind that much because you think back to the one you really liked and go, yeah, but on the other hand, that was a great book.
Yeah. I mean, in fairness to The Beast Arises, one thing you have to kind of give it credit for is that they at least attempted to make the orcs, who have long been stigmatized as being, the joke army, as being a legitimate, terrifying
an actual
threat.
credible threat.
By making them so over-the-top threatening that it almost became laughable again.
Yeah, that's the fine line you have to find, isn't it? But, at the very least, an attempt was made.
Agreed. Okay, I was going to have a question that segued very nicely from our discussion of Lorgar, but now I'm going to have to backtrack to make it a good segue. So the question goes, what would have happened, in your opinion, if the Emperor allowed for the worship of him during the Great Crusade and the Horus Heresy? I.e., they let Lorgar be, so monarchy never happens.
God, there's a lot. There's a lot to unpack from that.
This is the problem with these questions.
Effectively, the events of the heresy would never happen in that case, because it was pretty much the fact that Lorgar was told, stop it, you little religious choir boy bitch, that basically ended up leading to the events of the Horus Heresy in the first place.
Exactly. There would be some sort of rebellion because the Emperor was planning to make one, but the Emperor's plan had to revolve around using Lorgar as the catalyst to drive a rebellion forward and using that to get Angron out of the picture, using it to get Perturabo out of the picture by driving everybody through Lorgar. So you basically have to write an entire alternate heresy where the Emperor sets a different chain of events into motion.
And if you allowed worship of him and that spread far enough anyway, then actually going after Angron, and it wouldn't even be that much of an issue for the most part, because there would be a fanaticism that was otherwise lacking, and like, Angron would never actually accept that anyway. So there would be immediately the point of, well, he's clearly gonna try something. We need to get rid of him.
In first, I don't think a lot of Primarchs would have accepted it, to be honest. I mean, I can't really imagine Dawn accepting people worshipping the Emperor as a god.
I feel like he would be able to. I feel like he'd be able to maybe essentially manipulate them into, like, I don't like it either, but this is how it has to be, and it's all for the good of humanity. Yeah. There are enough pragmatists amongst the Primarchs that you could pull that off, I reckon.
And then someone says to Dawn, "Hey, but Dawn, you get to build a nice church."
It's true. We'll let you build an actual fortified church. He'd be on board. That'll be it. A massive fortified church, go for it.
And then we found the Sisters of Battle 10,000 years early. When?
Can we fit defense missiles into an organ? Yes, you can. Yay. I shall make a wooden table.
And also, while we're at it, like, even going back to before Lorgar, if the Emperor allows religion, then the last church never happens. All it is instead of being a conversion to rationality that involved the death of Uriah, it's a conversion to a new faith, which doesn't necessarily require mass burning of every church. It requires maybe some purging of some fanatics who won't let go, but it allows them to rebuild. At the same time,
Uriah might still, martyr himself for his religion.
He might, yes, but the whole every single religious person and every single religious icon and building doesn't have to die on terror if he's going to allow religion to grow in the background anyway, with Lorgar as its catalyst.
I suppose.
Yeah, big one to unpack. Whenever you do these sort of what would have happened if this in the Heresy or Crusade era, there's so many ramifications that it's just like, how do you unpack that? Like, I was streaming the other night and I was like, what is the one thing that you would retcon if you could? It's like, the sprawling implications of doing anything are just ridiculous when you start thinking about it.
Now, what you'd retcon was the stupidity of load-bearing walls being heretical.
I had forgotten that was a thing because I haven't read Death and Antagonists for at least 6 or 7 years. So now I have something I can retcon. Yes, good point.
First on the list.
Pretty much. Okay, do we have any more? I'm not going to do that.
He'll do anything for love, but he's not going to do that.
Okay, actually, speaking of Soul Drinkers, if the Soul Drinkers were not from Dawn's gene
My Discord
seed,
is playing up again.
How come the Imperial... Oh, the question reads... I'm going to read this verbatim. How come the Imperial Fists all don't know that? I don't know.
I didn't hear the first half of the question because my Discord cut out again.
Okay, if the Soul Drinkers are not from Dawn's gene seed... Okay, wait a minute. If they're not Sons of Dawn, which we know they're now not, how come the Imperial Fists, and I quote the question, all don't know that? So it's like, how would the Imperial Fists not already know that the Soul Drinkers were not Sons of Dawn? I assume, given the fact that the Soul Drinkers contributed their gene seed to the Fist, and it was shown to not be Dawn's gene seed, and where did that come from? It's like, how would the Imperial Fists just finding this out now?
Question is, do the Imperial Fist apothecaries actually check the gene seed specifically to make sure, is this actually ours that we taken from our brother Imperial Fist? Is this actually his gene seed? Because you'd kind of think they'd assume, that they were all Imperial Fists, wouldn't they? Let's be honest.
True, but I'm sure
the tithes that get sent to the Mechanicus, that's not necessary to test for genetic heritage, just test for purity.
True, but when they have to harvest the sample, say, after they've gone through a particularly dangerous war zone where they could have become corrupted, they will test that gene seed, or they'll test them in from head to toe, like Lysander. Lysander's a great example. When he came back, obviously he might be pure Imperial Fist gene seed anyway, but I'm going to use him as an example. He came back from his exile and disappearance and capture, and he was tested down pretty much to the molecular level to make sure that he was still clean and pure and good to go. That will have involved an analysis of the gene seed and comparison to stock Imperial Fist records of what Imperial Fist gene seed should look like.
Yes, but at the same time, at least 75% of all Imperial Fist gene seed is Imperial Fist gene seed.
I agree, but if you test a tactical squad that comes back from a demonic incursion and you test them all to make sure that they're clean, the odds are you're going to hit one Because 1 in 4 should mean that 2 or 3 in 10 of that squad are potentially soul drinkers based.
Theoretically, yes.
So if you check their Genestealer against all records and say, okay, if they're what we think they are, they should have a defective Petrus clan, this, that, the other, and this should be the coding. And it doesn't look anything like that, because it's clearly not Dawn's. They did that on a quick check on Sarpedon. Now, we could argue that maybe the Soul Drinkers themselves are Sons of Dawn, and it just so happened that Sarpedon wasn't, because he was mutated as bloody anything. Because we don't know, I don't remember exactly which Soul Drinker they checked, or did they check them all before those 4 carried Deniathos off into the war?
Oh, God. I can't remember who they tested, to be honest.
See, if they checked Sarpedon, he's mutated as Flip anyway. Maybe his gene seed was wonky. So it might be that. We don't know. Yeah, it's a bit of a weird one, because you feel like that after 9,000 years of having that in your gene pool, even if it was at most 1 in 4, you would have hit it at some point.
Do you know what would be quite funny? If the Soul Drinkers gene seed was in fact Iron Warriors.
That would be amazing. Could it not be also, like, is there not a chance that... I mean, the Imperium is not exactly known for their pristine record keeping. Like, just corruption or loss of data, or even just someone flat out got it wrong. Like, the Imperium cannot keep track of anything. One of the things that I quite liked about, I think it was in the Dark Imperium book, is when Gilliman is looking through, like, records and stuff, and he's just like, what the hell is this? Why have we got, like, 18 different calendars? What is going on? How does anyone keep track of anything around here? Like, the actual exasperation of, there's so many different records being kept in different places that don't match up. You've got multiple ship names appearing all over the place and dates that they shouldn't have existed. Surely, even for something like Gene Seed, they're just not going to be that competent, are they? To keep everything exactly in order? And when it comes to, like, the mess of...
You expect the Imperium to be
that's
competent
the thing, like,
for
especially
anything?
with, like, the Last Wall and stuff, it's already a mess anyway. The whole thing was like a colossal mess that had to be fixed. And so by this point, it could very well just be that, no one knows. The records are garbage. As far as anyone can tell, what can be recovered or what is known is... they're Sons of Dawn, and that's it. And so finding out they're not is genuinely a surprise, because as far as anyone knows now, they might have known before, but those people are no longer around and those records are no longer complete. It is a surprise because, well, it's the Imperium and they can't keep track of anything to save their lives.
Good point. I'm sort of coming at this from a too rational Emperor level perspective of things that should be written down are written down and done properly. I forgot this is the Imperium. Good point.
But don't put it down in a data slate, because that's unfair bias towards the Mechanicus.
They're on the Phalanx. Do you think they really give a shit about not paying homage to the right people? They're on the Phalanx.
How many pigs have they got on the Phalanx? How does that, like, what's the ratio there?
Yeah, fortified pigsties.
Just so. Anyway, I think that's... look at the time. I think that will probably have to be enough for questions for today.
Yes. So does anyone have any last words?
That sounded very threatening. I didn't think it went that badly. Come on.
Oh no, that was fabulous. I really enjoyed that. That just went on so many fantastic tangents. And I hope people got to listen to the spoiler section, or at least when you get round to reading that book, that you find a suitable desk and try not to break it, because that's what I've just had to do. So
pick one of those cheap IKEA desks and give me a go for it, because they're only cardboard on the inside.
Yes, quite. But we won't spoil it. Keep it within the timestamps. If you want to go and see it, then, well, you know the time codes. So, yeah, I haven't got anything else to add. I think we've covered everything.
Pretty much. Okay, so thank you very much to everyone who joined in to listen to us this episode. We hope you enjoyed it. And thanks to Kirioth for joining us as a guest this week.
It's a pleasure. It's nice to be on again.
Yeah, pleasure to have you, and I'm glad that the audio held up this time, because that's the one thing I really regretted about the last episode we had with you. It's just, the audio was terrible. So I'm really glad that it's held up this time. And even if it hadn't held up, well, the audience didn't need to know that. So I shouldn't have said that. I should not have said that.
Giving away the secret.
I've cut out today is ridiculous. But anyway, so until next time, this has been Remlace from 40k Theories.
This has been Tactica Imperialis.
And Kirioth.
And we'll see you again next time. Bye-bye.